Lindsay, you're dropping already so much wisdom. I wonder if we could dive into some fundamentals of fundraising. And this is something that, I think everybody is looking for. Just what are some of the keys? What are the key takeaways? What are the things you should be mindful of? All the words that you're saying about mindsets and rigor. I love your vocabulary that you use around this because it's so good and it's so true. So I wonder if you could kind of walk us through those things.
This is fun. Thank you for this opportunity to go through it. I have 5 elements that I think are the most important in terms of a master mindset around fundraising.
Love it.
Number 1 is most critically how you show up. So it is flexing that muscle of mindfulness and thinking about how you are greeting the conversation, because you are the leader in the conversation. You have asked, I'm assuming you are the fundraiser in this case, so whether you're a volunteer or staff, you have asked for the meeting, you have a proposal to present, and you are therefore in charge of leading the energy, the tone, the pace, and the feeling. So you need to take the moment to yourself and get your head right. So whether that is, striking a power pose that I love of Amy Cuddy, who's a, awesome TED talker. She talks a lot about the benefits of opening your body up to increase your sense of confidence and calm and decrease that anxiety, fear, flight or fight, or lack of energy, lethargy. So it's important to do maybe a power pose offsite, in the bathroom, in whatever, if you're in Zoom land, just take the camera off and get your body open and confident. I am a big fan of just moving your body as well. So if you can do some jumping jacks or a little walk, something to make sure your body's blood is flowing and your mind is activated. And then you go into the conversation with, a healthy body and mind. And also you want to start right away with why are you there? So what is it that you're bringing to the table? This is part of how you're showing up. So why are you there? Get convicted on your intentions and your purpose. Then it's number 2 is just figuring out what you need to bring. Okay. So this is the stuff that you should not be worrying about ever. It's something that you should just plan, and you just know every time you're going to bring the same thing. So every time you're going to bring your case for support, just in case, even if you've gone over it already. And again, if this is virtual, just make sure you've sent it out in advance so that you've got that as your framework, your background, anything to fall back on. Your prospective donor probably does not need it again because you've probably had a couple of meetings already, but it's just there as that resource and crutch to make you feel confident and capable. And then you want to make sure you have a pledge form. So whether we're in Zoom land and we're sending a link, or if we're in person and you're actually having them sign a document, always have a pledge form on you, regardless of how the meeting's going to go. You just want to have it with you at all times. And then the thing that you might not have every time, but would be more situational, is if there is any follow-up information that they've asked for. So if you were having an offline conversation during your cultivation meeting, it might have been, I'm really curious about how your organization falls in line with national statistics. And so then it's your homework as the fundraiser to go back to your resources and come up with whatever additional information is needed so that you're carrying on with, your responsibility and what was talked about last time for that continuity, trust, and momentum. Okay.
I'm loving this. Okay. Yeah. Cause I feel like I want to be able to pause just to reflect on what you're saying here. Cause I think showing up, I think of this in any setting, your enthusiasm, your passion is going to be palpable, totally. Whether it's there or not. And it just sets the whole tone. Palpable. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I love that you start with that because it is absolutely important. We talk about it all the time when we hop on a Zoom. It's you can tell in the first moments if you're going to have a connection with somebody, and it's how you show up and it's how you engage in the eye contact. So I love that you brought that there.
And you can tell she's a yogi. I mean, because the mindfulness and yes. That really, people joke about that. It's very cliche, but there is so much truth in just pausing, creating space to get centered. And even while you were talking about doing jumping jacks, I was hearing the Rocky music, the Getting Stronger. I can just, we're going to see fundraisers in a bathroom, with their AirPods on, doing jumping jacks, listening to music. I actually think it's a really interesting hack.
Yeah.
I like that too. And I often ask people, what's your hype song? So like before you go into a meeting, like what's your routine? Because some people are like, you know, what I just said may be enough if you're a newbie, but if you're actually going through a lot of fundraising meetings, then you might have a whole routine where you like, I get my body right, I get my mind right, I get some music going, I have my speaking points, and it's good to just make a routine of what you're bringing to the table so that you have that to rely on. And you don't have to worry about like what's going to happen. It's more so like, I know I'm going to be set. I know I'm going to be ready to handle whatever comes my way.
So Lindsay,
you can pivot, you can engage.
What is your hype song?
Oh yeah.
I should have known that was coming.
I literally have been thinking like mine would be The Chain from Fleetwood Mac, which Julie's like, who's Fleetwood Mac?
I love that song.
It is such a good power song. John's going to have something
seriously
techno.
know, in my head, I was like, what's that song? This is my hype song. This is my fun song.
I can't think of one. I have a Spotify playlist called Hype Man that I play before things. Like it's all of these sort of songs.
That's literally.
Honestly, can I be honest? It's Chainsmokers for me. I love the Chainsmokers.
You don't love chain smoking, but you love the Chainsmokers.
And I don't know that they're like, we won't go down that bandwagon. But their music, electronic, go for it.
I knew it. I love it. Go there.
EDM.
I'm sort of like I'm stalling out in the moment because I'm on the spot, but I just love anything Beyonce. Or there's this song, I just can't remember who sings it. It's called it goes, I am the man, I can do anything. And I always say, I am the woman. And that's sort of like my fun part of like, yes, that's how I make it my own.
I love it.
Okay, so we figured out how to show up. Number 1. Number 2, figure out what to bring, and that to me is like your hygiene pieces.
Don't leave home without
just be organized, like before you leave.
And honestly, I love the pledge card because I feel like very rarely is somebody going to fill it out right there. But it's like if they ask and you don't, like how awkward is that, right? Awkward. It's like, I didn't think you would want that. You know, I mean, what do you say?
Yeah,
I love it. Okay, number 3, we're ready.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I like how you said hygiene, but really those 2 points are to say control what you can control and then, be ready for whatever else comes. That's what you can control. Those are the 2 things you can control is yourself and what you bring. Then it comes into go time. So you're thinking about the clock. So you get in, you want to make a quick check-in on, are we on time? Like what is this person running late? Am I running late? How much time do we have? Do we have a full hour? So I just go right into it and say, I'm so excited that we're talking. I just want to make sure I've got my timing right. Do we still have an hour? Or, do we still have a half hour? Whatever it is, it's such a small thing, but then you can actually manage the conversation and the flow and make sure you're steering it in the right way. And if it's not going the way you want, then you can still pause and say, hey, I'd like to transition, or I'm like really excited to talk about something else. Like, are you ready for that? So you can use specific call out language that steers you back on track and make sure you get done what you're supposed to get done.
What a great
And sometimes
tip.
that means that you just kick it down to another meeting.
I think about asks that I've been on where I have not done that. So this is a do what Lindsay says, don't do what Becky did. And it can be very distracting because in your mind you sort of have the flow. I'm not somebody that writes the whole thing out. I just have my points. And if someone is looking at their watch or if they're checking their phone, I'm thinking it's about me. Like, am I droning on? And it's like, you can cut all of that questioning out if you just ask. And it's a very kind, respectful thing to do for somebody.
Yeah. Or, Zoom time, if you hear dog barking, baby crying, you're like, just pause wherever you're doing. Hey, is everything okay there? Do you want to pause? Do you want to grab something? Do you need to do something? And just being human, right? So staying human, managing the time.
Perfect.
Love that.
So yeah, in terms of managing the time, I just want to round out that third point there is, you want to start with the warm up always, icebreaker, connector, bonder, whatever it is. It's following up on the last conversation. It's checking in on, what's going on. And then it's getting into answering questions, making sure that you have removed any obstacles, that you have, gotten them into the mentality of yes, 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 everything is good. I've got all my questions answered. And then it just comes time for the ask. And I wouldn't make the ask until you're about, you've got it's a 60-minute meeting. What I say is the last 15 minutes. So if it's a half an hour, then, you do the math, but the last quarter of the conversation is when you should do the ask. because you don't want to start the ask right off the bat. Then they're not able to concentrate on anything else you're talking about because all they're thinking about is, oh my gosh, that's a lot of money. What am I going to say? When do I have to make a decision? Is this going to be over soon? So you want to take all of that, like red alert, that anxiety for the donor, just take that out. Get to the bonding, answer the questions, talk about the impact and the mission, reiterate things from the past that were resonating, and then go right in. And, it's really just asking for, I'd like to transition. So I'm going into point 4, but I'm going to just roll with it and modeling. So thank you so much for everything we've discussed. I hope I've answered all your questions. Is there anything else? Or, do you have another question about XYZ? Maybe clear that out. Don't leave too much time. I have seen this go wrong by saying, is there anything else? Is there anything else? Any other questions? No, just ask one time and then move on and say, I would like to transition into inviting you to join us. So I am also giving to this campaign. If you're a volunteer, you say that, or the reason I'm a staff here is because I love XYZ. So just one more quick passion and commitment from yourself. And then to say, I'd like to invite you, Becky, to join our campaign. And would you consider a gift today of $25,000? And then that could be a recurring gift for the next 4 years of $25,000 again, for a total of $125,000. And that would be a leadership gift that would help us to open the school. Or whatever it is.
Yes, I say yes.
Then you're silent.
Becky says
you're
yes.
Silent. We can't miss that.
Yes.
You were awesome. Silent.
This is the point I wanted to make sure out of this entire conversation. I feel like I just interrupted you there, and it was the most important point, which is when you make the ask, you stop talking. And that, to me, I went through the Indiana School of Philanthropy major gifts class awesome. 1 year. And that was the line that stuck out to me the most. And our instructor put the fear of God in all of us. I remember leaving that almost a little shaky, where the point where she said, I still remember her, she was so fantastic. Her name was Gwen. And she said, when you make the ask, you say nothing else, because so often people are so intimidated, even seasoned fundraisers are intimidated, that they will literally talk themselves out of it. Would you consider making a gift of $25,000? But if that's too high, then that's okay. And if you don't want to give anything, we'll just show ourselves out the door. It's like, you haven't even let the woman answer this question. So yes, please just be quiet.
And did you see that study floating around recently that it's like these major CEOs all embrace this silence to like process questions, and it's totally acceptable. They may sit there for 7 or 8 seconds before they answer because they're contemplating. Like, you got to give space. Mm-hmm. People are different.
Be okay with quiet.
Yep.
I have a difficult time with that. No one is probably surprised by that, but really, I mean, I think we heard this from a major philanthropist that we just interviewed a couple weeks ago. He said the biggest problem with fundraisers is they talk too much. Mm-hmm. And he said we need to be listening and creating pauses. And I think that's a really great takeaway.
Yes.
Yeah. And even throughout that conversation before you get to the ask, your conversation should really be about strategic questions rather than more fact providing. Like, you're not necessarily trying to convince anybody anymore. The ask meeting is not to convince anybody. It's actually just to clear the air if there are any points of confusion or any more elements to solidify. It's not the time when you're selling the concept. That's earlier. And then once you have buy-in and the prospective donor is like, I love what you do, I want to help you, then you're like, great, let's talk about what that looks like. And then you go into that ask. So I like that point, Becky, quite a lot. And, I think that the most important thing you can do is get your questions down more so than your pitches down. I mean, pitch is important, of course, but you've got to be able to really guide a conversation more so than just talk, which I love to do too.
Yeah. Well, I think your point right before the ask too, I thought was super smart, that you talk about your own personal commitment. And that makes sense easily when you're working with a volunteer. Obviously, that's their door opener. But I think for staff, that's huge to say that I've invested my career here because this is my passion, but I also have invested in this campaign. I mean, that just speaks so much stronger, and it makes it less awkward. That's what I always tell people too, is it's less awkward if you're already doing it. So you're just asking them to join you. You're not asking them to do something that you haven't done yourself. So I love that. I love that advice.
And with that ask, it's just what you said, it's stating why you're bought in, but then making the invitation and following it with why all in one sentence. So maybe you is like your own sentence. And then the second one is, would you consider a $25,000 gift this year and every year for the next 4 years, total of $125,000 so that we may XYZ? That's all one very long sentence, and then period. And then you're stopping, you're letting that person process, you're letting them digest. Just remember that they might have sticker shock. Hopefully, if you're doing your job right, you're asking for something that's really, big and meaningful and substantial. And, the worst thing that can happen is they say, what in the heck? Where did you come up with that number?
And then you just
laugh it off and say, oh my gosh, mea culpa. I don't know your capacity. I just know this need is huge. We've got to get this done. What feels meaningful to you?
In worst case, hopefully they're flattered that you thought that they had that much assets.
Exactly. I'm like, you think I'm loaded? Great. Must be my blue shirt.
I love that you are giving everyone, verbatims of what to say, because I have to tell you, even going through like at Madison Institute or something like a capital campaign class or something like that, I have seen even seasoned fundraisers say, I'm not sure what the words are. I'm not sure exactly how to transition them. And I think just giving those examples to someone can create some confidence of, okay, because what you just said was incredibly natural. And it seems like something you would say if you were just going to sit down with a friend to ask them to, join you in something that's very important to you. So thank you for giving those examples to our community.
Yeah, thanks, Becky, for saying that. I remember distinctly a moment when I was training a new fundraiser a few years ago, and she was just so uncomfortable with it. And she just did not like the ask. It was so hard for her to get around. She liked the relationship building. She did not like the ask. And I said, okay, you have an assignment. Ask somebody to do something that they don't want to do. Drive you to the airport. You travel a lot. Ask somebody to drive you to the airport. And it's a pain. Like, it's not something that somebody wants to do, but tell them why it's meaningful for you. And what would that feel like? And so that muscle memory, as you're talking about, Becky, of just like figure out how you make it authentic to yourself so that it comes out naturally and less like a script, but you're asking for something and you tell why, and then you just, let the person respond. That goes back to control what you can control, and the rest is, up to the universe or the respondent.
And probably the end result is not going to be nearly as bad as what you thought, because your friend is probably going to say, yeah, I'd be happy to drive you to the airport. That's no problem. We can visit and we'll grab coffee beforehand. I just think that there are such natural ways that you can get right with that, get more comfortable with that. So that's a really good hack.
With this latest valuable episode, we'd love to thank you for joining us on the Creating Community for Good podcast. If you found today's show valuable, simply visit our website, creatingcommunityforgood.com, to leave a review, as well as to get access to additional resources and relevant links from this show. Stay tuned for more episodes.